baby that can now live in the world outside the womb. Explore the miracle of birth, next on Body Atlas. The start of a new life, a fertilized human egg, hardly big enough to see. Over the next 9 months, it will divide and grow millions of times. Changing dramatically in size and shape, within the mother's womb, it gradually takes on a human form. The single egg has become a complex organism of some 2 trillion cells. A baby that can now live in the world outside the womb.
That's good.
12 hours ago, Valerie and her husband conceived a new life, a brother or sister, and ears to kidneys and lungs.
Oh, look at that. What else have we got?
4 weeks have passed since the egg in Valerie's womb was fertilized. Although she suspects she may be pregnant, she is uncertain. No signs have appeared. Yet in the past month, many critical events have happened within her.
Can you see him? Yeah, he's a bit like Postman Pat.
A day and a half after fertilization, the egg divides into 2 cells. During the week it takes to travel down the fallopian tube, these cells divide again and again. The process begins slowly and then speeds up. As the cells divide, they become smaller, but incredibly, the evolving cluster grows no bigger than the original egg. Finally, the cells drift into the womb. Its spongy lining has thickened to make ready for the cells to burrow in. Taking nourishment from Valerie's body, her new child now begins to grow. Only certain genes in each cell switch on. A flood of chemical messages are released, instructing the cell to become part of an eye, or the heart, or an arm, or a leg. From this simple beginning of division and multiplication, these identical cells begin to change. Some cells within the cluster start to take shape. In less than a month, the fertilized egg has become an embryo. One end is the head, and the other the tail. A swelling along the back will form the brain, spinal cord, and skin. Buds begin to grow, which will gradually turn into legs, arms, the liver, and heart. As early as the 3rd week, a tiny heart begins to beat, and blood begins to flow. The heart consists of 2 simple tubes. A final 4-chambered heart will not appear for another few weeks. Still, the primitive heart must practice working as a pump as soon as possible. After a month, the developing child not only has a functioning heart, it also has the beginnings of a brain, eyes, spinal cord, lungs, stomach, kidney, and intestines. Valerie's period is now 2 weeks late, and she's feeling sick in the morning. It's time to check out her suspicions. Her urine carries the message. The tiny embryo has drastically shifted the chemical balance within her body. A flood of new hormones brings on her sickness. The excess hormones flushed out in urine are detected by the pregnancy test, and it is positive. Now, 5 weeks old and the size of a pea, Valerie's child is attached to its membranes by the beginnings of the umbilical cord. The jaw appears and the brain is developing fast. A few days later, the baby's head is now 1/3 of the body's total volume. The dark patch will become the retina of the eye. The eyes are wide open. As of yet, there are no eyelids to cover them. Now the heart beats strongly. The hands look like paddles. They're supported by cartilage, but soon bones will begin to form. At 6 weeks, fingers and toes are still webbed, but they're growing fast. The mother has now missed her second period. Also visible is a mouth with lips, the beginnings of a tongue, and buds for 20 milk teeth. At only 7 weeks, an ultrasound scan reveals the baby's first movements. But its mother cannot feel anything because the embryo is so small. It weighs only 1/30th of an ounce. Yet, the features of a unique new face are beginning to emerge. Limbs are longer now, and fingertips are swollen where touch pads are forming. Even though Valerie has a tiny human with a complete set of limbs and organs, there is little to show the outside world, since the baby is still smaller than her thumb. At 9 weeks, the fetus is totally out of proportion. The head is now almost half its length. Attached to its mother by the umbilical cord, the baby floats in a fluid-filled sac. Its nostrils are plugged, and gluey ridges have sealed its eyes shut. Footprints and palm prints are now indelibly engraved for life. Blood vessels show up easily through the tissue-thin skin. Despite the size of the head, the brain within is still very primitive. There is no sign of any real consciousness. Limbs twitch, but their movement will not synchronize until 5 weeks later. After the 14th week, the baby's body finally catches up with the growth of its head. For the first time, its legs are now longer than its arms.
Since he's about 2 months.
Oh, bless. What a super boy.
Valerie can only feel the baby's movements when its legs or arms hit the side of her womb. Zoe has constant reminders of the kicking baby in hers. She's more than halfway through her pregnancy and will give birth first.
I know, this is what I said to Andrew after I had Lauren. I said, this is no good. I said, everybody brings her presents, and she hasn't done anything. I've done all the work and I've got nothing.
Valerie's 14-week-old fetus is still developing its repertoire of reflexes. It's now swallowing and excreting small amounts of the surrounding fluid. Thumb sucking has begun. This reflex allows the baby to practice both sucking and breathing movements for later life. Usually it prefers one particular thumb, indicating whether it will become right or left-handed. From a clumsy paddle, a delicate hand has developed with tiny but perfectly formed fingers. Now, the baby has periods of activity separated by sleep. When resting, its favorite position is to sit on the base of the mother's spine. When awake, it sometimes spins around in the womb on the umbilical cord. The fetus finally begins to put on fat. At 16 weeks, it now completely fills the womb. From now on, the mother's abdomen expands rapidly to accommodate the growing child. During the rest of the pregnancy, the baby's weight will increase from 1 ounce to 7.5 pounds. A routine ultrasound at 20 weeks confirms the baby is developing normally, and it's a boy. The umbilical cord, its color showing blood on the move, is the baby's lifeline. It delivers food and oxygen and takes away waste. It also links the fetus to the placenta, which acts as the baby's lungs, liver, and digestive organs, all without the mother's blood mixing directly with the baby.
And there are the 2 pumping chambers, the 2 receiving chambers, which forms a sort of cross, which is called the 4-chamber view. And if we put some colour on, it'll allow us to see the blood flow through the heart.
The baby's heart is beating twice as fast as the mother's. All 4 chambers are working well, pumping a few spoonfuls of blood around the tiny body. A yawn may promise a quiet period for the mother. The baby moves around inside the womb, which is becoming a tighter and tighter fit. There's an increasing danger his fingernails will tear his thin skin. Some babies are born with several scratches on their faces. But there is some protection. At 13 weeks, hairs begin to grow, and later, a sticky white secretion covers the whole body, held in place by the hair. For the rest of the pregnancy, it protects the baby's delicate skin from the corrosive effects of the surrounding fluid. Zoe is now so far advanced in her pregnancy that she finds walking uncomfortable. While Valerie's baby still needs the protection of the womb, the 30-week-old baby inside Zoe is almost an independent being. Although the average baby will stay in the mother's womb for another 2 months, with modern hospital care, Zoe's baby would have a good chance of surviving if it were born now.
Just his job.
As both of these mothers have found, their bodies have changed radically to adapt to the rapidly growing baby inside. But at 26 weeks, pregnancy is not just a matter of a larger abdomen and swollen breasts. All of the mother's systems are affected. Her heart increases in size so that each beat pumps out 1/3 more blood. Its rate also speeds up. The baby can now hear, and Valerie is aware that sounds affect her child. Loud noises can make the baby jump within the womb and speed up his heart rate. As the baby gets older, he will be able to distinguish between more and more sounds, and his brain will interpret them. He's learning to live in a noisy world. The developing child is also sensitive to light, but no one knows if the baby can see. In its final 8 weeks, the baby's appearance changes little. but the cells in its brain and nervous system continue to knit together, and the baby becomes more alert. Muscle tone in both legs and arms also improves. Only 4 weeks to go for Zoe. At this stage, the average woman has put on almost 30 pounds. With birth so near, she can no longer travel by plane. A baby's schedule is highly unreliable. Only 5% arrive on the expected date. The baby has now turned and is lying head down,